Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. President Trump is finally officially going after a major source of all of the rioting and political violence taking place in this country, and that has been for the last several years, announcing yesterday that he is designating Antifa a terrorist organization. And we also found out yesterday that the Department of Justice under Joe Biden was investigating almost 100 Republican-aligned groups after the 2020 election, including, of course, Turning Point USA in a probe called Arctic Frost. So joining me now to discuss both of those things is FBI whistleblower Marcus Allen, returning to the show. Marcus, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Good evening.
Good evening. All right, I want to talk about Arctic Frost because this took place. I mean, technically, it was under it was the time that you were at the FBI. This was obviously not a part of your purview, but when you hear that something like this was going on, are you surprised?
No, I'm not really that surprised at all. As a former professional there, working under the domestic terrorism program and the international terrorism program, it really doesn't shock me based on the conference calls that I was a party to while I worked there, and just some of the ideology that's prevalent within the walls of the organization. We always want to look for criminal activity or some kind of crime of violence or action when it comes to ideologies, but it was obviously there is a left-leaning flavor to terrorism world in the Bureau.
Yeah, well, and we know that threshold for investigation became quite flexible under the Biden administration. I want to ask you, though, because, I have consistently held that most FBI agents are like you. Most FBI agents they care about this country, they are patriots, and they want to do what is best for the safety of this nation. But I think about the scope of an investigation that wraps up at least 100 or up to 100 organizations. How many agents would it take to investigate this many organizations?
I mean, up to 100 organizations. This is kind of like it would be a primary focus for a lot of the field offices. And so what the SSAs and those individual task forces would be doing, they would know that these organizations would be a priority. And then if they're conducting their jobs honestly, what they're going to be looking for is any kind of act of violence, allegation of actual criminal activity, more so than the actual ideology.
Yeah. Marcus, I want to ask you because, John and I, over and over and over again, we commend you and honor you for your courage in speaking out. You and a whole host of other whistleblowers, specifically from the FBI. Do you anticipate that even though the FBI is now under Kash Patel, but maybe because it is now under Kash Patel, that others might feel a little bit more at liberty and feel a little bit safer in speaking out about things that they saw under Chris Wray's tenure?
Yeah, it would definitely be helpful if we had more whistleblowers come forward and speak out against what they're seeing internally. I know I was privy to conference calls where, if it was something happening on the left, it was kind of poo-pooed, but if it was on the right side, it seemed like it got more attention, which was irksome, obviously. But the thing we always look for is criminal activity. The issue with, the targeting in an operation like Arctic Frost is now you're tasking assets, you're tasking sources to go out and try to find things going on with these organizations. So you're applying a little bit more pressure in the sense of you're looking into these organizations where there might not actually be an allegation of criminal activity. So your predicate for even looking into these organizations in the first place is not even there. So that's a major issue to be concerned with.
Yeah. Do you think that culture has changed? I think it has changed at the top, obviously, with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, but that's a culture that can spread throughout an entire organization pretty quickly.
Yeah, I really think it depends. I think a lot of folks there, unfortunately, they just look at what's coming, straight at them on their computer screen, and they just put their heads down and they try to focus on what their task directly in front of them is. And unfortunately, it's like administrations come and administrations go. So it really depends on who's in charge at the top as far as what direction the organization's going to go. So if someone wicked is in charge, then obviously more wicked things are going to occur. And if someone good is in charge, then they're going to do things that are generally more good. The issue to me is the people who just put their head down and go along to get along so they can keep their paychecks coming in. Yeah. So in that regard, I think it's very difficult to change the culture there when people know that, every 4 years, the flavor is going to change.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute observation. And I want to ask you, because of your experience in the terrorism field at the FBI, I want to ask you about the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization. We saw what they did in the Summer of Love back in 2020 following George Floyd riots, and even before that, burning down cities, burning down police precincts. President Trump was sent to a bunker because of their activity just across the street from the White House. When it comes to, because I know President Trump has spoken to Attorney General Pam Bondi about possibly bringing RICO charges against some of these organizations because of that pyramid structure of them and obviously their donors at the top. Do you think that that is a smart way to go?
Yeah, I definitely do think that can be productive with designating them an actual terrorist group. I'm more familiar with that on the international terrorism side with the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 219. I think there could be potential pay dirt here because Antifa did originally start in Europe. So if they could find some way to internationally connect them with groups in Europe, I think it'll go a long way in helping them to actually designate the organization as a terrorist organization if they can establish that international tie, and then they can get more focus on them. And obviously you want to go towards the funding. Like during the Summer of Love, we had pallets of bricks showing up, and nobody knew where these pallets of bricks were showing up on the edge of towns across the nation. It was like a big mystery, which was shocking to a lot of us internally as to why are we not investigating this? Like, why are we not trying to figure out where these pallets of bricks are coming from that these rioters are then using against police officers or to destroy property?
Did we ever look into that, by the way, the pallets of bricks? I mean, I feel like it feels like everything is under surveillance these days. That seems like some pretty low-hanging fruit.
Right, yeah, that seems like a layup, right? It should be pretty easy to figure out, like, where are these pallets of bricks coming from? So it's kind of one of those issues of like, if you don't investigate, it doesn't mean that a crime didn't occur. It just means that your organization, for whatever reason, chose not to investigate it. Yeah. So it's like, you talk about sins of commission and sins of omission. Like, why did we not try to run to ground those types of activities that were occurring?
Yeah, it's all so unfortunate. So when it comes to that pyramid structure that we talked about with the funding at the top, constitutionally, can we go after someone like George Soros or Open Societies Foundation if they are offshore, if they're not based here in the U.S.? What do we do?
Right. I mean, if you can identify the organizations, identify the personnel and what their stated policy goals are and where that money is, like follow the money, where the money is actually going and what it's being used for, then that's something that could be potentially investigated for criminal activity. But obviously you'll have to have your investigators focused on that, smoking that out, and then literally having, the presentations and the data to back up, they spent $1 million on X, and this is where the money went and the type of activities that it went to. So they're going to have to, the organization is big enough that if they wanted to focus on those outfits, they could do so intensely. It's just a matter of, are the personnel in the organization, under direct orders, going to follow through, as long as they're an allegation of criminal activity, which in this case, that's what they're trying to allege.
Right. So when it comes to designating Antifa a terrorist organization, what is the benefit of that as far as law enforcement and investigative purposes?
Right. So it's gonna signal internally to the personnel, and then it should also receive more funding. So that more investigative assets are tasked towards that particular problem. So like with the ranking structure of investigations, if something's ranked low, then it's not going to get a lot of resources aimed at it. It's not going to get a lot of investigators. It's not going to get a lot of money and other assets coming to bear on that problem. So if it becomes more of a problem, then naturally you're going to have more of your investigative focus at the field office level structured towards that, as well as the funding that the Bureau gets in its budget geared towards that as well. So there is some benefit to it.
Yeah, that's good to know. Good to know. FBI whistleblower and hero Marcus Allen, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. After the break, we're going to talk about the upcoming Boot Camp for Patriots event put on by AMAC. And one of the headline speakers is my co-host here on this show, John Solomon. So we're going to tell you how you can go in person after this break.
Hello friends, John Solomon here from Just the News. In a time when trust in Washington is at an all-time low, more Americans are stepping up and getting involved in AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, is helping lead that effort. AMAC is the conservative alternative to AARP, and they're focused on protecting the values that built this country: faith, family, freedom, and personal responsibility, things you and I believe in. As a member, you'll receive exclusive discounts on travel, insurance, and healthcare services. You also get access to trusted tools and resources, plus a subscription to the AMAC magazine, one of my favorites, packed with information you can actually use. And here's the best part. When you choose a 5-year membership like I did, you'll save up to 33%. That's just over $1 a month. A small investment to help hold Washington accountable and support a movement of patriots committed to preserving America's future. Join millions of fellow patriots like myself. Visit amac.us/justnews and become a member today.